Welcome to the Crystal Chronicles, episode 41, recorded on November 30th, 2016. I am not Pierre, but I am your host today, Mark, and Pierre and Ben could not join me as we had some holiday scheduling conflicts. So we're not recording on Twitch live in the evening. We are pre-recorded earlier, but we wanted to get content out to you because so much has happened in the world of Final Fantasy Record Keeper. So, let's wish Pierre and Ben well. We'll see you all together next week on Twitch, Wednesday night, of course. But let's get to stuff this week. Starting with announcements. This has been the week of Mythril giveaways. Hopefully you've been logging in every day for 10 days. We're still in the midst of this Thanksgiving login bonus. 5 Mythril each day for 10 days. 50 Mythril added to our Mythril bank, plus a Final Fantasy 15 release login 5 days, including a first day 15 Mythril bonus and a special Final Fantasy 15 sword that we cannot really use to its full effectiveness because we do not have Final Fantasy 15 realms or event dungeons. But when we do, we'll have a nice synergy weapon to bring in. We have all kinds of issues that have been resolved, but no apology Mythril. So I guess we're going to have to settle for our free 50 and our free 15 and our daily and our dungeons and our motes and our multiplayer and all those other Mythrils that we've achieved and upcoming realm dungeon updates. So I guess we can live with it and say it's okay, DNA, we'll forgive you this time. Gaishal Green's exchange updates today. So remember to get your major orbs and your Mythril. Don't forget to get that Mythril. Sometimes I do, and that's why I listen to the Crystal Chronicles every week to be reminded. Now, on to more important and exciting things. Our week event that started last week when we launched, and as we were recording, Aspiring Knight, aka Onion Knight Hype. If you didn't realize, we have now been introduced to one of the most overhyped and excellent characters in Final Fantasy Record Keeper, the Onion Knight. Yes, from level 1 to 99, from level 1 to 92, his stats suck, and he is no good because he has no ability to do much of anything. But once you break his memory crystal 1, 2, and 3, and you move his level from 99 to 93 to 99, his stats increase monumentally. Now you get all 3 of his memory crystals in this event. No need to go to a memory crystal 3 load. You just are given the memory crystal 3. You are also given access to his record sphere. He has 12 spheres in total, 6 more than most characters, except for, of course, Tyro. But you need an Onion Knight mote to unlock each sphere. That's a total of 12 Onion Knight motes. If you unlock all of the Onion Knight motes, you get Support 5, Combat 5, Ninja 5, Celerity 5, Black Magic 5, and White Magic 5, and he becomes a versatile machine. You need to collect onion motes from the event, and you get about 6 doing it that way, and from the special XP dungeons within the event. There's 3 different tiers of them. Of course, to maximize your experience, you want to use the 90 stamina, or what's it called? The plus dungeon, the Enigma dungeon, plus, and get a chance to get those motes. You need 6 in total. If you've been grinding that XP dungeon, it's not too hard. If you still haven't gotten all of your motes, there is still time. So let's review the hyped Onion Knight. Now, the Onion Knight truly shines with his burst soul break called Vessel of Fate, his gauntlets. This grants plus 30% attack and magic and haste to all allies. Earlier in the week, they forgot to include the fact that this does count as a haste daga. It does give haste to all of the allies. The commands for this burst are 4 physical hits and remove attack delay for the next attack, or 4 magical hits and remove the delay for the next attack. He has 2 super soul breaks. 1 is physical and 1 is magical for further DPS options. Often we find him used as a support character, and as we'll mention later, he is the only support 5 for Final Fantasy III. For kind of looking at his full stats. Now, should I upgrade? Obviously, if you get his BSB, you should be upgrading the Onion Knight. But if you don't get the BSB, should you be upgrading the Onion Knight? Certainly, for Cid missions in Final Fantasy III, this guy shines. But beyond that, what are his stats? When they are fully upgraded, a level 99 Onion Knight with all 12 spheres unlocked in his record sphere, you're talking about a character with attack 260, magic 249, mind 227, defense 140, resistance 133, speed 175, and HP 7,460. If we compare that to the stats given to Paladin Cecil, you have attack 230, magic 120, of course, mind 149, defense 240, resistance lower than that, and speed 120, HP 8625. So he does not disappoint when it comes to his stats, and he is versatile, being able to use attack, magic, and mind, and also has a nice speed and amount of HP. He's a little bit lower on the defense and the resistance, but compared to other characters at level 99, he's not too shabby. He's just not going to be as tanky as somebody like Paladin Cecil or any of your tank-like characters. So that is the Onion Knight, and there is reason to be hyped. He is an excellent character. I know I have completely unlocked mine. I know many are working on that themselves and have saved up those 4-star motes to be able to do just that. This event Aspiring Knight also gives us a new accessory, Luneth's Pouch, which is plus 15 attack and moderate wind resistance. That kind of rounds out our wind resistance accessories, which is nice. I'll probably be doing an update as I've been working through my accessories here, making sure what we have a lot of and what we don't have enough of. I'll give you a hint. We have plenty of fire resistance, but we are still lacking on some of the other ones. We also have record spheres unlocked for Onion Knight, as I just said, and Luneth and Desh. Now, Desh gets damage bonuses, first to sword damage, that's black magic, so black magic when you have a sword equipped, lightning damage, and just black magic. So he is your sword-wielding mage, right? Luneth actually gets some really cool record sphere unlocks, and that is 5-star Spellblade, 5-star Darkness, and 4-star Support. So Luneth might be a character worth looking at if you have especially his BSB or his Super Soul Breaks. We also get, now if Onion Knight wasn't enough, if a new accessory wasn't enough, if some decent spheres weren't enough, we also get new abilities, 2 free abilities by completing this event. The first, Gaia's Cross, is a 5-star knight ability that does 2 physical earth attacks, gives a defense buff, and adds draw fire. So it's a great thing for your knights to use to tank, to give draw fire and damage instead of just taking draw fire itself, buffs their defense, and also does earth damage when you're facing those earth bosses, or if you have an Imperil Earth team. The second ability that we get is the 5-star monk ability, Fires Within. That does 2 ranged physical fire attacks and restores HP based on your max HP. Very exciting. Our monks always need as much help as they can get. Moving on to Ultimate Battles. Our Ultimate Battles are a little interesting this time. No, not the first one, but definitely the second one, a little bit different than we've had in the past. So the first one is Crystal Tower, and that is the infamous Red Dragon. Now, this is a pretty standard fight. Most magical damage and most of the damage that he does is fire. So, what do? We bring max magical mitigation, and we put fire-resistant accessories, which we have a lot of, on all of our characters, and I really think that's probably the key to success. He resists a lot of elements except for poison and dark, so please be careful with your soul breaks, spell blades, mages, unless you have an Imperil team and can completely ignore resistance. Not completely ignore it, but ignore it a little bit less than if you didn't have it. That brings us to our ultimate plus battle, a little bit more challenging, the Crystal Guardians. Now you face 4 Crystal Guardians one at a time, not 4 all together, but one right after another, right after another, right after another. And I personally enjoy these fights quite a bit because I think they're challenging, they make you think, and each boss is a little different, so you have to prepare accordingly, and I think that's really cool. Each of these bosses has a specific weakness and a specific resistance. So the key to this battle is understanding their weaknesses and their strengths or their resistances. So going through the list, we start with the land turtle, who is weak to earth but resists wind. Next is salamander, who's weak to ice and water but resists fire. Next is the kraken, who's weak to lightning but resists water. And finally titan, who is weak to wind but resists earth. So they all play off of each other, so you have to make sure which element you're using against which boss. My advice, bring physical and magical mitigation, and have full break ready when you are about to defeat a boss. Remember, you're not fighting them all at once, so you don't need multi-break, but have full break on standby when that boss's health is low, so you can immediately go into the next boss by breaking him or her. They have shared HP pool of 380,000. Now, they each have their own HP, but when you combine that, it's 380,000 HP. So that is a lot of HP, and you should be taking advantage of elemental weaknesses. So look to create a team that has each of those weaknesses: earth, ice and water, lightning, and wind. Now, of course, this is the ultimate plus, and that means this is the Cid Mission. So our Cid Mission, to use Final Fantasy III characters. Now, if you have Onion Knight, bring Onion Knight and use him in all of his BSB Super Soul Break glory. But if you're just looking for simple ways to beat this, or kind of the standard ways to beat this, let's start there. Lunith can use Dragoon and Spellblades, so he can do wind and lightning damage pretty easily. Of course, he can do ice and water as needed with Spellblades. Without an upgraded Onion Knight, so without a fully sphere-broken Onion Knight, Ignis and Desh are your support characters. But neither of them have support 5. They each have support 4. But Ignis can bring Gaia's Cross for earth damage. Rifia can do earth damage with Meteor Crush, but she's also a sharpshooter, so she can use Sapphire Shot for water damage. Desh can use Black Magic and 3-star Spellblade abilities, so he has a lot of elemental options. If you have his Sphere Grid broken, you can use his ability to increase black damage, sword black damage, and also lightning damage. The more powerful your Onion Knight is, the easier this will be. Also, if you have Lunith's Super Soul Break or Burst Soul Break, that will toast Titan at the very end of the battle, who is, of course, weak to wind. But I think this is achievable without any of those big relics, bursts, or Super Soul Breaks. Obviously, if you have them, you're going to do a lot better. Now, we move to the ultimate plus, Daga and Unai. Unlike the previous battle, you actually face these two together. Both have dangerous attacks that they use more liberally the lower their health gets. Unai uses Holy, which remember is based on Mind, so magical breaks will not help, and we are a couple days, I guess 1 day away from hyper breaks that do Mind as well, but we're not quite there yet. Remember to bring Dispel to get rid of the Protect and Haste that Unai casts on both Daga and himself. Now, Daga has more powerful attacks, and I would suggest taking him out first. Now, you can use AoE attacks to try to bring them down together, but remember, when their HP is low, they have an increased speed, and they're going to be using more and more damaging attacks. So if you try to use AoE, be prepared for the fact that in that last phase of the fight, they are going to be dishing out a lot of damage. My suggestion, take one at a time. Start with Daga, move to Unai. They have no real weaknesses, so pretty much let your onion shine. Now, if you want to add a little bonus to this, you can Roaming Warrior, Celeste or X-Death. Celeste is Indomitable Blade, and X-Death's Grand Cross, both which have the Runic ability. And so those are great Roaming Warrior options as they absorb those incoming single target magic attacks. Now that that's taken care of, let's move to the reason that we're all hyped on this particular event, which are the banners, not the fights. And of course, the first banner is the banner that we are all hyped about, with Lunith's Burst Soul Break, Onion Knight's Burst Soul Break, Onion Knight's Super Soul Break, the physical version, Ark's Super Soul Break, actually 2 Ark's Super Soul Breaks, both his staff and his robe, Lunith's Super Soul Break, so we got 2 Arks, 2 Luniths, 2 Onion Knights, and at the very end, poor Ignis's Heroic Shield. But this is a banner where everything is pretty good. Even Ignis's Shield is okay if you don't have anything else in that realm to give you haste or protect. So this is a great banner to pull on if you're considering pulling. Obviously, the MVP is Onion Knight's BSB. I mean, it's an upgraded shout in one sense. Yes, it does a little bit less of a boostka, but it still is giving you the haste. It's giving you bonus to magic and attack. Plus, it's giving you burst abilities that are very quick, that can raise your soul break gauge even more so that you're able to use it more and more and more. You can do that. You can Roaming Warrior it. Obviously, if you have Onion Knight, he's much more versatile than Ramza. And, oh, by the way, this also stacks with, anything you want. So any other boostka, this stacks with. It also stacks with Hand of the Emperor. It also stacks with some upcoming things, too. But remember, plus 30% with decent attack and decent synergy equipment is going to get you to that soft cap. Now, Lunith's BSB is also very, very solid, very competitive. Obviously, if you're looking for a Imperil win team, it's amazing. But even not, it's a great Burst Soul Break. And Ark's Medica is basically like Minwu's Medica. It's an instant cast, high-level Medica, but it also adds that extra blink against physical attacks. So nothing really is going to go wrong. Yes, Ark's older Super Soul Break and Luna's older Super Soul Break aren't as good as the rest, but they're still awesome. Now that brings us to Banner 2, which brings us Ignis's Burst Soul Break, which is obviously overshadowed by the Onion Knight's Burst Soul Break, but Ignis's Burst Soul Break is actually pretty decent. And as a Soul Break, deal 4 physical, earth, and non-elemental attacks to all targets, temporarily raise the user's attack a moderate amount and defense a small amount, and grant haste and burst mode. Oddly enough, this also actually stacks with Hand of the Emperor and Apocalypse Shield, which, if you're just looking at reading it by attack moderate and defense small, it would sound like it doesn't stack, but they are actually different IDs, so they do stack. Not to mention, you have some very good options after you're using his burst attack for Ignis. It's a great tank ability BSB. Rifia's BSB, on the other hand, is amazing. And again, probably overshadowed by Onion Knight. If Onion Knight was not on these two banners, this second banner would be what was being hyped. Rifia's, to this day in Japan, is still a well-used and high-level BSB. It's very high-rated among both physical and attach element BSB. It is attach fire, so if you're having a fire team, it's very good. But even if you're not, just the physical DPS this does is amazing. So this is a great BSB as well. So wow, 2 banners, both with great relics. There's nothing terrible on that second banner, but there are some things that are just kind of outdated or have been overshadowed, like Rifia's Super Soul Break, for example. Obviously is just outshined by her BSB. So, should I pull? Obviously, if you have Mythril, it's probably not a bad idea to try to pull at least on the Onion Knight BSB banner. The Onion Knight is not going to hurt any team. He's going to be on your A team forever. But you can also Roaming Warrior him. So if there's other things you're looking forward to, like the Final Fantasy XIV banners, or maybe the Celebration banners, when and if we get those that have OSBs, or maybe even banners in the future that you're looking forward to, then certainly you can save your Mythril. Moving on, and we'll talk about some draws and draws of the week here in a little bit. But moving on, let's move to our Mote Dungeon. So our Mote Dungeon has been unlocked again, and you can, of course, go back and do any of the Mote Dungeons that you have previously not done. And for the time being, this is the best way to get 4-star motes, so I encourage you to at least complete them. Now, doing the Cid missions doesn't get you additional motes. It gets you major orbs, so you don't even have to do the Cid missions if you don't want. Just try to master them to get all of those 4-star motes, because right now 4-star motes are not are not in high supply. Although as we go forward, multiplayer tournament dungeons in Japan, those are going to add those 4-star motes at a much higher rate. So the Mote Dungeon currently is World of Darkness, and of course that matches Final Fantasy III, the realm of the event that we are currently in, and that is Ahriman, the floating eye of evil. Now, just as an overview, he mainly does magical attacks, and those magical attacks do fire or lightning or ice or earth, or he does meteor, which is of course non-elemental damage. His physical attack, and this is particularly annoying, has a small chance, about 12%, to petrify your characters. So you have to deal with that. Thankfully, you can draw fire retaliate to avoid the physical attacks and therefore avoid petrify. Or you can bring a way to blind Ahriman to deal with the petrify. Gigas armlets I found exceptionally helpful because they resist the fire, lightning, and earth. But you can also bring accessories that do earth damage, accessories that do fire, the major accessories. We have major accessories now if you've been keeping up with your Nightmare Dungeons for each of those. So you can just randomly put them on your characters, or just use accessories that increase your resistance, of course, to help against meteor and those other things. That being said, mitigate as fully as possible against magic damage and exploit his weakness to wind attacks. He is weak to wind. Now, if you want to do the Cid mission, I hope you have Lunas, BSB, or Super Soul Break, because that would really, really help you. Obviously, both of those things do wind. They both are great DPS. They both do a lot of damage. That will take this guy down very quickly. If you're lucky enough to have Lunas, BSB, this should not be an issue for you. The problem we have with a Final Fantasy III team against Ahriman here is we have no native draw fire retaliate combo. Even with your Onion Knight all ranked up, he doesn't have Knight or Samurai, right? So here you have to blind him. Thankfully, you have a lot of options, as most of the characters have a way to use a blind ability, whether that's Dark Buster, Blind Shell, or Blind Guh. You have characters that can do all three. Personally, I use Dark Buster on Onion Knight. I think I've seen a lot of people using Desh and Blind Shell, but I found Onion Knight and Dark Buster sufficient to be able to do that. Obviously, if you have Onion Knight, that's going to help a lot. You can consider bringing Lunas BSB as your roaming warrior if you can mitigate the damage enough naturally with your Cid team. If you have some good relics that are helping to increase your resistance, Shelga and Protectka, other things like that, then you might be able to just bring Lunas BSB and go to town with that wind damage. Remember also that Onion Knight Sphered Up is your only support 5. So that would be super helpful in this to have the full break option, because if you don't have Onion Knight Sphered Up, you don't have support 5, therefore you don't have full break, so you're almost always relying on power breakdown, magic breakdown, and then bringing maybe armor or mental breakdown, depending on what kind of damage you are doing. Probably physical. There's a lot more wind options in the physical than there are magic currently. So good luck, and I hope you are getting your motes on. I know I needed mine to complete Onion Knight's Sphere Grid. Or do we call it that, Sphere Grid? I don't know. I've been watching Final Fantasy X remastered walkthrough commentary with Dan SG, so enjoy that. Now, we've also been given the Rematch Dungeons because everyone was crying to face ultimate battles we haven't done before. We haven't done in a long time. Ultimate battles which at the time were very, very challenging and which we here at the Crystal Chronicles went over, of course, in great detail. So we get in Rematch Dungeons Final Fantasy XIII, Chaos Ballad, which was the Final Fantasy XIII 3 event. We get Final Fantasy IV, Cagnazzo. That's an Ultimate Plus. So is the other one, Ultimate Plus. And Final Fantasy VII, Bahamut Sin, which is just an Ultimate. So if you're looking at stamina, the first two only cost 1 stamina, but the final one costs 60 stamina because it was an Ultimate Dungeon, not an Ultimate Plus dungeon. So basically, I don't think you're probably having any difficulty with these because we have a lot more than we did when these came out. But just looking quickly over that, remember Chaos can be interrupted. He can also be dispelled. I don't even think I dispelled him, although I believe it says remove Chaos Ballad's regen. I forgot to do that, and I just went to town on him. I brought Lightning just for fun. I didn't bring Cid teams on each of these, but I brought Lightning just for fun and dismissaled, and then I used her BSB just to try to stop him as much as possible. Had a lot of magic mitigation, and he really was not much of a challenge. Of course, if you're having issues with any of these, please come on our Slack chat. You can go to www.ffrkcentral.com, find the Slack, go down to the Slack channel, join the Slack, get on our global channel, and we're going to be able to help you with these. Not too bad. Now, Cagnazzo, one that gave everybody a heartache years ago, comes back. And remember, the big thing with this is when he is not collecting water, he's vulnerable to ice. When he is collecting water, he is vulnerable to lightning. And you have to hit him 3 times with lightning attacks. And it doesn't count if it's Chain Thundaga or if it's a special BSB, Sarah's BSB, or Ash's BSB, any lightning BSB, multi-hit lightning spells. That does not count. You have to do 3 different lightning dive, 3 different lightning attacks. Lightning dive doesn't help, even though it does 4 attacks. That does not count as your 3. That counts as 1. So bring lots of people with lightning, and also lots of people who can use, besides lightning, ice. And then you have to be super patient, and that's why I fail at this particular dungeon on a regular basis, because my patience is not very high. But just to give you an idea of what I did, and I did not do this one particularly gracefully, but I tried to be patient when he was collecting water. I used lightning, and when he wasn't, I used ice. The problem is he can jump back into that collecting water and do the tsunami attack really, really quick. So you have to really be careful on your timing. But to give you an example of what I did, I brought Kane with the ice jump and the lightning jump. I brought Sarah with lightning and chain ice. I brought Onion Knight with ninja abilities, because why not? So he had the lightning scroll and Phantasm. I brought Tyro with Tyro as my Spellblade for some reason. Well, because I have Sentinel Grimoire, of course. And had Blizzard Strike and Lightning Strike. And then I brought a healer. And I brought a healing as my... Yeah, I brought Vanille's BSB as my roaming warrior. Because I'm at that point with both Wall and Onion Knight that I can be a little creative with my roaming warriors. But I found having 4 people with both ice and lightning attacks was a really good idea. He's not doing a ton of damage, especially if you prevent him from doing that tsunami attack. But you might want to bring water-resistant accessories just in case that does get off. So, Cagnazzo, hopefully you have a good time defeating him. That brings us back to Bahamut Sin, everyone's favorite ultimate that I don't know why anybody, although I really, really enjoyed this event when it came out. This was the Cloudy Wolf event that gave us Cloud's first fusion sword and also the dress record because it was a Final Fantasy Advent Children event, and I, of course, love Final Fantasy Advent Children. But one of the problems with this originally was the mastery conditions includes defeating 8 Shadow Creepers, which is a pain in the butt when you're trying to wait for the Shadow Creepers to respawn, because you start with 2 of them, then you kill them, then they kind of take their sweet time coming back, and then you kill them again, and they kind of take their sweet time coming back, and then you kill them again. And if you have brought Bahamut low in his HP, he is doing devastating attacks. So you can do this a couple ways. You can completely ignore this and just try to get as many medals besides defeat 8 Shadow Creepers as possible. You actually get partial medals for this. So if you defeat 4 Shadow Creepers, you get 1. If you defeat 6, you get 2. All right, so that's another option. Or you can ignore Bahamut and just focus on the Shadow Creepers. Or you can do it like I did and defeat Bahamut, bring him down as low as possible, have him do horrible, horrible attacks, and kill the Shadow Creepers. And that's basically what I did. Remember, Bahamut gathers energy, and you have to stop him doing a certain amount of damage to that energy ball before he unleashes Giga Flare or Petra Flare, depending on where he is in his HP pool. So I do enjoy this fight, and I did kill all 8 of the creepers just because I didn't do it the last time, and Aerith died, which I thought was fitting, because I did bring Cloud and Aerith. Why not? And Vincent. I figured, hey, let's have some love for Final Fantasy VII, and I brought Onion Knight and Tyro. Why not? So I did bring Fire and Onion Knight MVP with the Fire Scroll. We're bringing ninjas back now that Onion Knight is on the scene. So thank you, Onion Knight, for bringing ninjas back. Hopefully, maybe we'll be able to also have our other ninjas not suck at some point in the future. But that is still to be seen. So hopefully you were able to do that. Remember, Bahamut Sin doesn't have really any weaknesses, but you can bring multi-break, and you can bring breakdowns, and you can bring some fire spells to take care of the creepers. You can just ignore the creepers and kill Bahamut Sin. In that case, it's actually a pretty easy fight, as long as you pay attention to his gathered energy. All right, we did also get a Relic Draw with the Rematch Dungeon, and it is a lucky draw for 25 Mythril, and it includes relics from the banners from those events that we just had. So the Cloudy Wolf, the Goddess, and the Porum and Palom event. Those were the 3 events that were represented by the Rematch Dungeon. So anything on the Cloudy Wolf, including First Fusion Sword, anything on the Goddess event, including Lightning's BSB, I forget what it's called, and then the original Palom and Porum relics, and everything on those banners. So, yes, it's a half-priced banner, and, you know, you're still getting your best buck, best bang for your buck, compared to a 50 pull or a 50 Mythril banner. But you're also getting fairly outdated relics. There's not a lot of use for really either Lightning or Cloud's BSB or Porum or Palom's older Soul Break. So those were kind of the highlights at the time. There are some good relics in the midst of that, but you're taking a big chance. And so if you have 25 Mythril and you're light in those realms, you want to get some of those, you missed them the first time, you want a chance, take it. If not, I would suggest saving your Mythril for other things like the Onion Knight banner that we just talked about, or even the Onion Knight banner 2 that we just talked about that had Riffia's and Ignis's BSBs, which are both decent as well. So that is the Rematch Dungeon. That brings us to our Beta Phase 2 multiplayer, and this time it is somewhat of a test, but not a test, because we get actual rewards, including Mythril. We have 2 multiplayer dungeons available, the Final Fantasy XIV Giant, Gygus the Great, and the Final Fantasy XI dungeon, the Dark Dragon. Conquer the Dark Dragon. Now, as we said previously, the first dungeon, the Final Fantasy XIV dungeon, is difficulty 25, 50, and 90. You can do those by yourself with 5 characters. You should not need to multiplayer unless you just enjoy doing the multiplayer. Then go right ahead. And this battle is not very hard. It's the guy with the big mace. He tries to get other guys out. I did not have any trouble killing him before he asks for his minions or gets his minions out. It was fairly quick fights all around, bringing your best team. Even without good synergy, I don't have a lot of Final Fantasy XIV synergy. That brings us to the Conquer the Dark Dragon, the Final Fantasy XI boss. Now, Final Fantasy XI, we have not very much synergy. We're getting a little bit more synergy, or we have more than we've had in the past, but you could still probably also beat these by yourself. The 99 difficulty, the 140, and the 160 are probably achievable by yourself. But I would suggest doing the difficulty 140 and 160 as multiplayer for fun and also for some loot. And you might do them multiple times for that reason. The loot is decent. It's not great. But you do get a Mythril for beating all 6 of these dungeons, so make sure you get that. A little bit of strategy on the 11 event, especially as you're going into multiplayer. Come on Slack. We have a channel for multiplayer. You can organize a team there. Go in, create a room. You're going to slay the dragon. It's not going to be a problem. I think it's kind of fun just going in randomly and seeing who shows up, or just jumping into a random thing and see if people have brought good enough things that we can do it together. But as you're thinking about doing that, either way, remember that you can sleep the black dragon. So put him to sleep and then use magic damage, or just ignore him while you're killing the other guy, the little floaty eye guy, right? And also try not to have too many Onion Knights on your team, which seems to be a problem going forward. I've seen a lot of Onion Knights out, but, can you ever have too many onions? I don't know. Maybe not. So we will be getting, from this point, more real and relevant multiplayer, and, of course, much more difficult multiplayer. So be prepared. A little bit of discussion. I obviously don't have anyone to discuss with, so I'd be talking to myself, which would be kind of weird. It is already kind of weird recording by yourself. In case people walk in and out of my office, they would hear me talking to myself, although I'm talking to you who are listening. So thank you for listening, and we will have more conversation, and some good conversation. One of the things we want to talk about next week with each other, with myself and Pierre and Ben, but also with you, is what's your favorite or least favorite sprite? Obviously, the sprites are all kind of the 8-bit sprites, and so depending on the graphics of the Final Fantasy, some of the graphics are actually better than the original games, and some of them are obviously much simpler than I won't say worse, but simpler than the original games, which were in high def and everything else. So come on Slack chat again, and we have a channel for the Crystal Chronicles. Jump on the Crystal Chronicle channel and share your most favorite or least favorite sprite as it appears in Final Fantasy Record Keeper, and we will talk about that next week. But for this week, I have some draws of the week. I also encourage you to share your best or worst draw, and we will pick them out. You can share on Twitter at RevMarkMyers, hashtag draw of the week. You can share those with me, your best or worst draws. Again, you can come on the Crystal Chronicles channel on Slack and share your best and worst draws, and we will pick a few to share on the show. So last week when we met and we did our Crystal Chronicles, we were so hyped for the Black Friday Lucky banner, which was guaranteed at least one burst soul break. But all of the 5-star relics that you drew were going to be burst soul breaks. So that was crazy. We were also, however, expecting that to be a 25 Mythril, as all of the lucky banners have been to this point, or most of them have been. But it was a 50 Mythril. Most of us pulled on it anyway, but I think there was some thought about, well, is it worth pulling? Yes, I'm going to get at least one BSB, but there's a lot better relics coming out, and there are some pretty duds when it comes to BSBs. I think my suggestion, although it doesn't matter because the banner is gone, was to pull on it if you had the Mythril, and if not, don't worry about it. I want to share a couple of the best, although one of them was the worst, as was put by the person who shared it, and that is Marley Frost shared hashtag worst draw of the week, and he pulled Garland's BSB. You might be saying to yourself, well, Garland's BSB is actually pretty good and makes him really tanky. Well, Garland's BSB is pretty good unless you already have one, and so it was a dupe for Marley Frost. So Marley, sorry buddy, hopefully next time you'll get something better. But guess what? You can upgrade that axe even more, and it's going to be a much better weapon. So good luck with that. And Garland is still great in his soul break and a great tank. Schwarzkopf pulled 4 5-star relics, and of course they were all BSBs. Garnets, Zidans, Furions, and Pinellos. Of course, Furion MVP there, but all great. And just an awesome pull from Schwarzkopf. Congratulations, Schwarzkopf. Then our friend Purple pulled 5 5-star relics, which were all BSBs. Celeste, Orin, Sephiroth, Leon, and the winner of them all, Yuna's Tiny Bees. And so congratulations, Purple. What a great pull, and definitely the draw of the week. Do have a couple to share with the Final Fantasy II banners. Of course, I pulled on it. I think so many of us pulled on it, and I saw a lot of Onion Knights. Now, I didn't see how many people actually spent a whole bunch of money or how much Mythril they went to get to it, but I did see a lot of people pulling the Onion Knight Gauntlets, which is his BSB. I pulled it. Pierre pulled it. I think Threats pulled it. I think Derek, Australian Derek, our contributor and friend, I think he pulled it. I think I saw a lot of other people pulling it. So if you pulled the Onion Knight BSB, congratulations. I actually had one of the best pulls I've ever pulled in Final Fantasy Record Keeper, and I got 5-star on banner relics for my pull in Final Fantasy III Onion Knight banner. I got Ignis's Shield, Ark's Staff, Luna's Dagger, Onion Knight's Sword, and Onion Knight's Gauntlet. So my Onion Knight is a physical DPS monster, and I'm enjoying that combo of his gauntlets and his sword, and I'm just enjoying using the Onion Knight. He is pretty cool. But I think Trinity gets the Final Fantasy III draw of the week. So Trinity, if you're listening, congratulations. Trinity got Ark's Robe, Luna's Staff, and the Onion Knight Gauntlets. That's about the 3 best. Well, that is the 3 best relics on that banner, and she got all of them in one fell swoop. So congratulations, Trin, and congratulations to all of you who pulled and did wonderful. If you didn't, I'm sorry, and there's so much more coming up in terms of banners, so I encourage you to not lose hope, and remember there's some really, really cool items coming in the future. I don't have news from Japan, as Derek is still asleep at the time I'm recording this, and so we will get that, and Pierre will post that on FFRKcentral.com. So I encourage you to go and check out news from Japan, and we will share it again next week with all of you, because there's some cool stuff happening in Japan, and you don't want to miss what's coming in the future. I'll quickly do Mobius. There's still tension with the Final Fantasy X events when it comes to Final Fantasy Mobius. But we are kind of in a lull in terms of events. We have one tower event. If you're not familiar with Mobius, the tower events are basically you fight battle after battle after battle, and the boss is the same, and it gets harder and harder and harder and harder. And you do that 50 times until you get to the top, and then you can do it as many times as you want to compete for the highest score in terms of globally how you can do it. But the boss this time is Tonberry, and so it's been fun fighting Tonberries and killing Tonberries and Tonberry Kings over and over and over again. Both of those cards in Mobius are mage cards, and they do water attacks, so been having some fun with that. Of course, today is Wednesday, which means Tuesday that we just passed, the 29th, was the release of Final Fantasy 15. And I'm a little sad that I don't have a PS4 or an Xbox One, so if anybody wants to get one of those for me for Christmas so I can play Final Fantasy 15, that would be certainly appreciated. Because I am jonesing a little bit for the Final Fantasy. This is the first Final Fantasy I haven't played on launch day for 20-some years. But I've got enough other things to keep me occupied, including Final Fantasy Record Keeper. Now, Pierre's not here, so I feel like I can do this. he is running a Patreon campaign. If you're not familiar with Patreon, it is a web service that helps raise money and give specific goals and specific benefits for entrepreneurs on the internet. And if you don't know, Pierre runs and maintains and pays for all of the overhead for Final Fantasy Record Keeper Central, our really the site we use every single day when we play the game, and just a wonderful site and something we use, and we post all this stuff to it, and there's just great information there, and he's done all the back end stuff, and all the stuff coming up is shared there, and there's a lot of vital information, as well as a full list of all the roaming warriors, so you can search through that. So if you're interested, please go on to FFRKcentral.com. Look at that. I think right at the top of the page, it talks about the Patreon campaign. Go to Patreon and just consider throwing a few bucks in to help that and even have better content going forward. Pierre's working really hard to get that up. He spends a lot of his own time and his own money. Really, he spent all of his own time and his own money to make that site a reality for the last couple years, year and a half. So I think this is just a great thing. I know I'm going to be supporting him, and I would hope you would support him as well. A couple other people have as well already. So consider doing that on Patreon. Just a wonderful way, a wonderful Christmas present for Pierre, but also just a wonderful way to say thank you for all the hard work he has done and does every single day, keeping that site maintained and continuing to try to polish it and make it better and better. Well, that's it for this week's edition, episode 41 of the Crystal Chronicles. You can reach Pierre on Twitter at FFRK Central. You can reach Ben at etakes88 on the Twitters. You can reach me, Mark, at Rev Mark Myers, Meyers, on Twitter as well. And you can reach us all on Slack chat every single day. I'm at RevHP. Feel free to message me. Feel free to join us. We have all kinds of chats. You can hashtag channel and get all the different channels. We have a global channel, a Japanese channel, a multiplayer channel for global. We have a Mobius channel. We have a Crystal Chronicles channel. We have a general channel. And we just have a good time, and it's just a wonderful community. So I encourage you, go on FinalFantasyRecordKeepersCentral.com. Get on Slack chat. Join all the fun. If you like this podcast, share it with your friends. Give us a good review on Amazon, on iTunes, Google, wherever it is, wherever you're listening to it. Join us on Twitch next week. We generally get together at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live on Twitch. We record it. We hear what you're saying. But in the meantime, join us on the Crystal Chronicles channel on Slack to give us all your input. Until next week, good gaming and good luck.
Hello everyone, this is Pierre. Surprise, surprise, I'm bringing you the Japanese Week in Review. By the time that Mark had recorded his bit, we got an email from Derek, and I figured, you know, what would be a Crystal Chronicle podcast without the Japanese Week in Review, so here we go. And before I do that, thank you so much, Mark, for the hard work you've put into recording this solo podcast. It was incredible to listen to from beginning to the end, and quite frankly, I would have taken hours and hours of this. So anyway, without further ado, this is Japanese Week in Review, thanks to our good friend Australian Derek. So here he goes. He says, hope you've had another killer week, this time filled with a bounty of Onion 9 relics and multiplayer good times. A bit of a busy week in the Japanese version of Record Keeper, so let's get to it. We've got the launch of the Final Fantasy XII event, Dancing Heart in Love. No new characters, no new abilities. There's a new OSB release for Bash, a new USB release for Penelo, a new BSB release for Larsa, and a bit of a bland event, but there you have it. So I guess nothing major there. The Dissidia anniversary banner launched. There's 25 Mythril, first 11 draw, so full price thereafter. So it's a 1/2 price banner, and then it goes full price. Some nice relics on there, including Zidane's OSB and Van's BSB, but lack of any real focus. Seems to reign Tyrus, so there's potentially hope if you still need a native wall relic. Launch of Final Fantasy X event, a dream which must end someday. Again, no new character this time. There's a new shooter, 4-star ability called Blue Drive. It's one single target, water range, physical damage. Bonus if you have a ranged weapon equipped. Shooter school continues to be treated poorly. New water element, CLSB, that's Chain Soulbreak, released for Titus. A new USB release for Yuna. New BSB release for Oran, Pain, and Kimari. Dress record returns for Titus, Oran, Yuna. That's a wedding dress, so grab them if you missed it out last time. And along with the Final Fantasy X event, we also have a balance change buff to Chain Soulbreak. They last longer when playing solo, and another wave of Memory Crystal 3 released. Again, there have been a lot of new ones introduced, so check the Hall of Rights to see if any of your favorite characters have been added. So that's a wrap for this week. It'll be exciting to see what we have coming up for December, as we've reached the end of content teased in the last Final Fantasy Record Keeper report. So do tune in next week to see what's been happening. So that was your Japanese Week in Review. That will conclude podcast number 41 for real. So thank you so much for being there. Apologies for a bit of a weird format this week, and we'll definitely be seeing you next Wednesday live on Twitch or on your mobile device shortly thereafter. So thank you and have a great week.